From the Oklahoman newsroom, it's time for Orange Alert, our weekly extended look at Oklahoma State football. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio with fellow columnist Barry Trammell and OSU beat writer Scott Wright. Guys, we've got a game in about 10 days from now, but obviously signing day on Wednesday, pretty big day for all college football programs. And Scotty, let's talk about OSU's class because it wasn't highly ranked or, generating a lot of buzz, but it seemed like a class that, at least for OSU coaches, filled needs, and they always like to fill needs.
Yeah, it absolutely did. They've been working really hard to rebuild that offensive line depth over the last couple of years. Josh Henson has had some significant success on the recruiting trail in loading up to backload that offensive line depth. He did a really good job yesterday with the 4 that he signed, including Taylor Materko, who's the #1 recruit in New Mexico. Big offensive lineman, 6'6", 270, who they think can be a really good player. On the defensive line, they've had this group of defensive linemen that's going out this year, guys that have been crucial parts of this defense for so long. Jordan Brelford leaving early, but guys like Trey Carter and Jarrell Owens and Cole Walterscheid, who have been staples of the defensive line for the majority of their careers, and it hasn't allowed them to get younger guys involved. So it feels like they're losing a lot. They've got some depth there, but they needed some more, and they went after those guys hard early in the recruiting process. Got a junior college guy in Sione Asi from Snow Junior College late in the process, who they think can come in and jump right into that depth chart. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of big excitement. There weren't guys like Spencer Sanders in this class that has everybody buzzing. But they did the things that they needed to do to add depth, to build for the future, and to get some immediate impact guys. So it was overall a success, even though fans are going to look at those rankings in the 40s and they're going to remember what Mike Holder said back in the summer and see all these 3 stars, and they're going to get frustrated. But this was a really solid class, in that they got guys that they wanted, and they filled needs that they needed to fill.
Well, Oklahoma State's class might not have been super exciting, but they got some juice in it late in the day when Langston Anderson, great name by the way, signs. He was a guy that we didn't know where he was going, decides to come to Oklahoma State, a wide receiver. Barry, the only wide receiver in this class, and Oklahoma State, I mean, they've got some guys coming back, but obviously the departure of Jalen McCleskey, they had some needs. This guy, though, 6'2", looks like he could be sort of a bigger guy, maybe, and a 4-star. You think he might be in that mold of sort of the next in this line of really great receivers at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, the Cowboys well stocked there, so they didn't have to go sign a bunch of these guys. But, when you get a chance at a guy like this, you take it, because this has sort of become the marquee position in Stillwater. This is a position where Oklahoma State can go to anybody in the country and say, hey, come play for us. 3 Biletnikoff Award winners in the last 10 years, a finalist this year with Tylan Wallace. Clearly, Oklahoma State has become a wide receiver destination. So it's only natural they should be getting these guys. If you don't offer many scholarships to receivers, hard to get one, but there at the end they got one. So decent chance that it continues this excellent production, production of wide receivers for OSU and Mike Gundy.
I think too, Scotty, another skill position that sort of got my eye was the running back position. As Mike Gundy mentioned yesterday during his press conference, they thought they were set there for a long time to come. Then obviously, the departure of Justice Hill for the NFL, which was a possibility, but then you lose L.D. Brown, J.D. King, I'm sorry. L.D. Brown returns, Chuba Hubbard returns, but they became thin there, went out and got a junior college guy, and might be on another guy, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They got Desmond Jackson from Hutchinson Community College, who is a 5'11", 210 type of guy that they feel has some Chris Carson type ability, in that he's kind of a one-cut guy, and then can run really hard at that point, but also has good enough speed to be effective. Then the big drama from here on out into the February signing date is going to be DeAndre Glass, a really highly recruited running back out of Katy, Texas. Oklahoma State already got an offensive lineman from Katy, Texas, so I'm sure that they're pressing him really hard to do some in-house recruiting. But DeAndre Glass has offers from all over the place: Alabama, Georgia, Miami, lots of places that he's looking at going. But a lot of those schools got other running backs yesterday while they were waiting for him to sign. I think Oklahoma State would have liked Deontay Glass to go ahead and sign yesterday. It didn't happen. Now they'll go into January. January 14th is when he says he's going to make his announcement. We'll see what kind of offers he still has at that point, because like I said, guys have filled spots now, and his list is going to get shorter. But he's also going to be a highly recruited guy because he's still on the market, and there are still other places that need running backs. So Oklahoma State can't back off of they can't rest in recruiting Deontay Glass. They've got to keep the full court press going. But there's going to be a really good shot that they have a chance to bring in another high school guy and replenish that running back depth chart that looked so good back in August and has found itself a little thin. But they still have Jamil Jeter, who they really like and had good bowl practices and is going to get to play in the bowl according to Mike Gundy. So they really like what they've got at that position. Just trying to make sure that they're restocked.
And talking about Desmond Jackson, junior college guy, and also Sione Asi, I hope I said his name right, coming from Snow Junior College, a defensive tackle. Barry, it was interesting, I thought, to hear how the junior college player pool has changed. You and I both asked him about it because those are positions, defensive line and running back, that the Cowboys need some immediate help. That's why you go out and get the junior college guys. But then Gundy said, you know, getting junior college guys is a little bit trickier because of the academics. They get most of the guys coming in to them as freshmen. I just thought it was an interesting thing that I didn't really know much about.
Yeah, you know, I hadn't even thought about it, but you know, in the 1980s, the NCAA undertook a lot of reforms that made it harder for athletes to get into school. Sent a lot more players to junior college. Slowly over the decades, that has changed, and now they have the sliding scale, which means if you don't have the certain score, a certain GPA can get you there. If you don't have the GPA, a certain test score can get you there. So fewer and fewer big-time recruits are ending up in junior college, which means people like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State don't go to the JUCOs as much. So you know, you still find good players there. You just don't find as many. So that explains why the limitations of junior college recruiting has come about. Just you know, you can find the same player on the high school level, but you know, some guys do go to junior college for a variety of reasons. Some of it's academic, and every once in a while you find a player. You know, we can talk about all kinds of guys. Tyreek Hill was a JUCO guy. So
yep.
all kinds of great talent is playing on the JUCO level.
And as Mike Gundy said, they come to you as 20-year-olds. So Scotty, I assume. I mean, I don't know if Asi or Jackson or both are slated to play, but it seems like there's a good chance those are guys that are at least going to get a shot to be in the starting lineup next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jackson obviously won't be in the starting lineup because you've got Chuba Hubbard ahead of him, but he's got a chance to be an impact player. Asi is a completely different story because they're graduating 3 of their of the 4 guys on the depth chart at defensive tackle. You mentioned 20-year-olds. He is actually a couple of years older. He went on a Mormon mission right after high school, then went to junior college for 2 years. So he is a physically mature compared to a lot of guys. He's physically ready to handle what he's getting into. So at 6'1" and 305, he's got a real chance to be an impact player right away, be in that main rotation for Joe Bob Clemens on that defensive line. You know, when you're looking at the impact players on this in this signing class, it's really you're really looking at the older guys like the 2 we just mentioned, and Tom Hutton, the 28-year-old punter from Australia who's been working in a paper mill for 5 years and now is getting his opportunity to come to America and get an education, and all sorts of excitement about that from him and his coaches over in Australia. Really unique situation that's going to be a fun story to tell once we get to visit with him. But you know, being more just more physically grown, in for lack of a better term, is really going to help guys like that to jump in and help right away.
You talk about Tom Hutton, and I think a lot of us are interested in him. And Barry, I thought it was fascinating that him becoming a Cowboy has a direct link to Michael Dixon, the former Texas punter, who's also an Aussie, who came sort of the same way. Gundy said, I want that guy on my special teams.
Yeah, now Mike Gundy says a lot of things, so you got to take a little, you know. He says right after that Texas game, I guess last season down in Austin, he said he told his recruiting guy and his special teams guy, hey, find me one of those, whether he did that or not. The truth is, this is a national phenomenon. Australian punters are all over college football and have been for about 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know why that is. Scotty might explain it in a future story. But for some reason, Australians can punt the heck out of a football. So, you know, we haven't seen it here, but we have seen it in a lot of places. Dixon at Texas is a prime example.
Scotty, you got any answers for that?
I don't have all the answers for it, but I can tell you after visiting with the coach from Pro Kick Australia, that number one, they scout the guys that they bring into their organization. So they're finding the best punters in Australia that they can. And then they're specifically looking for places that they think guys are going to fit based on coaches that have contacted them. For instance, Oklahoma State contacted Pro Kick Australia and said, when you got a guy, let us know. They come across Tom Hutton, who the coach described as a country lad, and they thought that with what he wants to do in his career, the educational opportunities that are available at Oklahoma State, that might be a good place for him. And you know, they signed out of Pro Kick Australia about 8 or 9 guys. He said signed letters of intent this round, and they think they're going to have a few more in February. But they look for places that are where their guys are going to fit, and then they mold them to go to that place. And they said they don't mess around with you know, hats on the table or you know any decommitments. They find a place and. Excuse me, they find a place and then they put their guy there. He commits and it's done. And the only thing that they ask for the coach is that they have the same respect and they don't pull a scholarship from a guy after he is committed. They're very serious about the way that they go about this, and so they're finding the best guys that they can in Australia who want an opportunity to do this, and it's really working out.
Mike Gundy called it a football factory on Wednesday, and lots of times that whole sport factory thing gets a bad rap, but after hearing that, I think it's actually true. It sounds like a football factory. So, guys, as we, I know we'll talk a lot more about the Liberty Bowl next week. It'll actually be game week or close to game week for the Cowboys, but my last thing I want to talk about is what they still need, Scotty. As last year with this early signing day for the first time, OSU exits early signing day with nearly their whole class signed. 25 is the limit, which we'll talk about that here in just a second, and how it might affect OSU with the guys that they've lost. But what are the positions left? I mean, you mentioned the running back that they're still in on. You know, I'm sure love to get him, leave that spot open. But as you look at this class, what other guys, what other areas might they be going to the grad transfer portal to see if they can find some guys during these next few months?
You know that they've got to still, even though they signed a lot of defensive linemen in this class, they would like to get another junior college guy in that realm, because you look at what they've got coming back. They've got 2 defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles who have played significant minutes at this point. They have nobody in the second string who has really played at all. So another guy who has some experience and can come in and be a help in the second string of the defensive line would be really significant at this point. Probably defensive end, because they do have Aussie at defensive tackle. They've got got a couple of other junior college guys who were waiting for their opportunity that redshirted this year. So they've got some guys who are ready to step in, but they don't have a lot of experience in that second line. So that'll be a big focus, and then it's just a matter of watching to see where guys off of the NCAA portal might be interested in. If a guy comes and says, "Hey, I'm interested in you," then you look at where he fits. Is this a position you need? Do you need another linebacker, which is a position that they have a lot of guys, but could use a real impact player. You know, maybe they need somebody there. Maybe they find you know, an offensive lineman who can be an immediate guy that comes in and helps. So that could really change the direction that they go with these last couple of spots that they've got in this signing class. You
know, I mentioned the numbers, and that's something we've talked about in recent weeks here and in other forums. But Barry, Oklahoma State lost several guys, transferred out that they were not expecting. So this limit of 25 guys in a recruiting class, they're going to be below, you know, 85 scholarships by the time they get done with this signing class. Mike Gundy talked about that on Wednesday, said it's probably a rule that's going to have to change as this transfer thing, you know, has really become more widespread. Do you see that changing? Do you see the NCAA altering that rule?
Well, I don't know, because there's another side to this, which is if you give coaches unlimited scholarships per year, as long as they stay under the 85, then you see the potential for coaches cutting kids loose and getting rid of players they don't want anymore, and that's potential fear for that rule. So the NCAA will tread lightly on that change. They could go up. They could go to 28, for instance, in a certain year. That would help some. They just don't want to see a place where you don't like your talent, so you go sign 40 new guys and get rid of 10 or 12 that you don't like. So that's the key. Mike also mentioned the APR, the academic progress rate, where if a guy in good academic standing, whoever it might be, decides to transfer, that counts against OSU. And his point is, he's done well, he's doing great, he's on track to graduate, he just wants to go graduate somewhere else. Why is that should affect us? So that's a valid point. That might be something that is addressed. But in terms of the increasing that 25, it's a little dicey as far as the NCAA is concerned.
Yep, lots of stuff to chew on. We'll continue to do that, and we'll start to look ahead to that game against Missouri here in the coming days. So be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.